to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Today on the show, I am joined by Phoebe Oldrey. Phoebe is the founder of Smartstyle Interiors based in the UK. Like many other designers, Phoebe spent some time in business before she decided to niche down. I know that it feels scary to do that, right? So often we're afraid to close the door on the other possibilities out there. But Phoebe's story shows what is truly possible when you embrace your passion and you start working on work that's meaningful to you. Okay. Phoebe got to the point where after almost a decade in the industry, she was about to leave it. And she tells us that story today. And I think you're going to really like it, and probably many of you will relate to it. Okay. She had this epiphany moment where she realized that she wasn't just designing for the aesthetic, that for the beautiful space, that she was actually making a difference in people's lives. And this is important, okay? I remember way back episode 41, Cheryl Janis discussed the same thing, that after facing devastating accidents and health issues, she realized that every time she was going to a physical therapist's office or any doctor's office, that the conditions and the environment made her feel as bad as the condition that she was experiencing health-wise. And she knew that it didn't have to be that way. But she had this moment, and it lasted for a couple of years. Listen to the episode, number 41, before she actually said, that's it, it's enough. For a few years, she contemplated, could I just design wellness spaces? Would I just niche to that? And then when she did it, her entire business changed. And then recently, Mike Peterson was here, episode 569, and he spoke about that the power that design has on the health of all of us as human beings, and that the designs that you create actually affect the physiology of all of us in the room. All right, so these are two great episodes if this concept of wellness design rings true to you. So before we get to the episode, I just want to thank J-Pour Living for sponsoring the show. J-Pour Living is another person out there, another company out there that is interested in the whole of what they do, not just the physical rugs that they make. Just like you as an interior designer are interested in the holistic approach to your clients and not just a beautiful sofa, J-Pour Living is invested in all of the things that they do, from the artisans that they employ all the way through to you as the designer they support in your business. So if you have not opened up your trade account at J-Pour Living yet, please go to jpourliving.com/Luann. jpourliving.com/Luann. You will see their website and all of the features on the website, real-time tracking of orders, real-time checking of inventory, real-time price quotes. These are all the things that they have built in. Go to jpourliving.com/Luann. All right, so I'm very excited to share Phoebe Oldrey with you, her opinions and her lessons that she's learned in her business regarding holistic design, niching, and following your passion in your business. Hi, Phoebe. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Oh, thanks so much, Luann, for asking me. I'm very excited to be here.
I am too, Phoebe. I have been, first of all, we go back a couple of years. I won't even go into the gory details of that. but I have always been so impressed since our paths crossed. I guess it is about a year and a half, 2 years ago at this point. And when I thought about this interview today, there was a very specific line, a very specific idea that I wanted to pursue. And it was, of course, based on your TEDx talk. I mean, first of all, congratulations on having done a TEDx talk. That is a major bucket list item of mine. And I have the most respect for you for having done that.
Thank you.
Yes. I mean,
one, as I want to say, Leanne, as you both know, is we are a mutual fan club. So I've always loved your podcast and I found it an inspiring thing to listen to. But yeah, I loved doing the TED Talk, and it was a bucket list thing of mine. And the opportunity came up to put myself forward, and I just did.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. I've had an opportunity one time, but the timing and the location didn't work out. And I've just said, you know what? When the time is right, the universe will work it out. It'll be fine. I'm trusting it because I want to do it, and it will happen. So, but meanwhile, I have huge respect for anyone who's done it, So, so I actually thought that I was going to start the interview jumping off of your TED Talk premise, which we will get to. However, when you filled out the form for being on the podcast, you brought up another, very close to home topic of mine, which is that talent alone is not the ingredient for being a successful interior designer. And so I thought, let's start there and get your opinions on that. And what you speak at universities a lot, you speak at high schools, and of course your own interior design firm for these many years. Tell me about your thoughts and your feelings and your personal experience with this.
Okay. I always have to step in very carefully because I am aware that I can get a little bit on my high horse about this, and I don't want to put off any listeners because who just go, wow, she's just mean. I think my thing is there is so much talent out there, and maybe my opinion comes from I've been in the industry now for 17 years over here in the UK, and even when I went to college, talent alone doesn't open doors for you. Talent is a gift. It is something that can make beautiful designs. But let's look at what is talent. If we talk about a talented designer, what that one designer produced may be loved by certain people, but not by others. There is a matter of style and taste that goes alongside that talent. But the other thing is that it's the element of going, I'm talented, therefore I don't need to worry about the other stuff. And ironically, if we look at how much in our interior design days is spent designing, being able to squeeze out those creative juices onto pages to, liven up a space and create beautiful things. There's a lot of other things that need to go underneath that. And it is stuff like, do you know the computer package to actually draw up the drawing so the clients can see it? Do you know your fire ratings on your fabrics? And these aren't thrilling things to know. I know, but so in many ways, my thing came from this is that I kept encountering people I'd run into when I was sort of doing, first one as an example of one, I was doing a speech at a school around here, and it was, kids who were looking at what they might go study at university. And I stepped in as the interior designer and gave, a sort of lecture to kind of say, look, this is what you could do as an interior designer. And the great thing about our industry is you can have the skill set to be an interior designer, but you can that can create very different career paths for you. You could be working much more in commercial stuff, producing restaurants and hotels. You could be producing, Google's office, or you could be running, a smaller practice, creating, high-end homes, mid-range homes. There's lots of avenues. So sort of I start by explaining the different avenues, and then I sort of say, how can you work your way into these? And then I talk about, the training you can take over here, what universities you could go to, what further education you can get to learn the skills of being an interior designer, because it's, you can have talent, you can see space, you can put colors together, but there's other things you need to know. And, from the audience piped up a little voice, and it wasn't even the child itself. It was a mother who went, I'm really sorry. I don't really think my daughter needs to go to university to study this. She's just really talented. and you want to go, good for her.
Right.
But when most of us are looking to fill a role within our practice, yes, we are looking for someone who has, design talent. But in many ways, we take that as read, that if someone's put a CV together and they've got experience on that and training on that, and they're going to bring in their portfolio. So I'm not going to really see their talent till they're in for the interview. I'm going to look for other things. I'm going to look for, are you going to fulfill the role I need you to do in the office? Are you going to be able to switch on your computer and know how to use CAD? Are you going to come into my office with your talent, and am I going to have to teach you how to do your job? And it was just that kind of blazing kind of comment of like, oh, we don't need to learn. We don't need to do the hard work. We just can be. And I've seen it at various different stages in my industry, or people trying to knock on the door to get in the industry, is they go, I've got talent and I've got passion. And you go, okay, you're going to get some training. Are you going to go work for someone else? What are you going to do?
Right.
And they just look at you with these big doe eyes and they go, I'm just going to tell you I've got talent and passion. Right. And I want you to do it for me. And you're going, not going to happen, Peanut.
That's right. It's not going to happen. And the thing is, I heard you in there, whether you get it at university, you get it by working for another firm. We know, of course, that you can do the school of hard knocks, right? You don't have to do university. You can certainly learn your trade and take individual classes on the individual skill sets. But the idea is the same no matter what. To me, it's so funny. God help that poor kid that her mother is like, oh, you're just amazing. It'll be fine. Really? Because you have to have a little something behind the amazing to be fine, right? It reminds me of somebody who would be as blindly to say, oh, my kid has always liked animals. We've always had all kinds of animals in our house, and she or he has such an affinity for it. I'm sure she could be a vet. It's like, well, she probably could, but you need to go to school to do that, right?
Yeah, I think it is very much that. And I think I've heard a great comment, which is, there is no such thing as luck in this world. It's where perseverance meets opportunity. Right. But when those opportunities come, if you don't have, the perseverance to open that door of opportunity for you, you're going to find you've cut your own path short while trying to take a shortcut. And I've seen it when some people went, I don't need to go work for someone else. I'm just going to write a blog about design because I love design. And sometimes that works, and that has worked for quite a few people. But, when you're on site, do you want to be learning your job while things are going pear-shaped on site and a builder's asking you a question you don't know the answer to? Right. And I think that's the thing is that it's not so much about, and I want to really define this properly, because it's not about me going, there's no room in the industry for people who have this attitude. It's just like you're cutting off your own opportunities by not knowing that sometimes you've got to put the grind in.
Well, and the thing that I have learned is to, when you just said that, you don't just start a blog and then it all works. The thing what I have learned is, it reminds me of Paloma Contreras, who was on the show a couple of months ago at this point, and she did just start a blog, quote unquote. But when you talk to somebody like Paloma, you see and hear all of the other, to your point, perseverance that went into it, and all the ways that I always call back to my friend Erica Ward, the transferable skills that she talked about way back in the beginning of the podcast. So it's, somebody like Paloma, who, yes, quote unquote, if you just take it at its most basic level, started a design blog and then became this major interior design icon. But she brought to it the transferable skills from other careers and the work that she has done. She never did just, let me just write a few paragraphs and wait for the world to bang down my door. And that's what that you hear in that mother statement that is missing. And it's not that my daughter is this, and this, and that will happen. It's like, she's got amazing talent. It'll be fine. It's like, okay, Toto, let's, try and get home to Kansas. You know what I mean? Like, stop, right? And
I think the other thing is, writing a blog isn't easy.
Right, that's the other thing. It's like a podcast. Go ahead, try it.
It is just that point of just like, there's a lot of, it's this continuous work of running a publication.
Right.
And it's you write, maybe you just publish once a week, maybe it's every Tuesday, but you got to write it. You've got to find the images. You've got to find the copyright for the images. You've got to then promote it. Right. You've got to get your SEO right. It's not easy.
It's a business just like design is, right? It includes all the back end stuff, the marketing and everything else.
Absolutely. And it includes the research, to write an article. So, I would like to say that I kind of have gone through times where I've really got into my blogging and times when I've, stepped off because, the work's picked up a lot more that we just couldn't sustain it. And, hats off to everybody who does open doors by it. But I think it's when you look to do it as if it's the quick answer, the easy answer.
Right.
And I think that's the other thing is if you've got passion for something, you're willing to take maybe the longer road, the more you're willing to keep learning. And I love it. And I think Michelle Obama, love her. But anyway, on her podcast talked about, what would take her eye about the interns who would come through the White House. And she would say there would be the ones who'd show up and they go, well, what's your 5-year plan? I want to be head of the PR team. And she go, that's great. And then another one would turn up and say, I want to be head of the PR team. And she said, but the ones who took her eye were the ones who would go, okay, well, I'm willing to do the grunt work. I'm willing to, I've got to be up at, 4:00 in the morning at the airport to pick up a speaker for an event because that's the grunt work you do. And they were the ones who did it, but they did it with a joy and a pleasure in what they were doing, and therefore they were getting to speak to amazing speakers at 4:00 in the morning in the back of the car.
There's a whole other education happening there that the ones at home in bed aren't getting, right?
Absolutely. While they lie in bed going, well, honey, I'll roll up when I'm head of the PR team, but not when I'm making the coffee for the PR team. And I think that's what it is. That's what the element of calling out is the attitude of just. Is you've got to put the grind in. Right. You've got to put the grind in. You've got to get the skills under your belt, and they support your talent. And it's not that I'm saying, it's talent is a beautiful thing, but you need things to support it. You need things to allow it to flourish. It's like having a beautiful plant and forgetting to water it. If you don't give it, or deciding you're going to run a marathon, but you can skip the training bit, it's going to hurt.
Right, it's great. Maybe you're going to do it, but it's not going to be pretty.
It's not going to be pretty, and people can't go, oh, I bet she could be fast if only she trained.
Right, like I bet she didn't have to do the last 2 miles on her knees if she actually practiced this.
And that's the whole thing is you can maybe run 5K without much training, but you can't run for 3 hours.
Right.
And if you're turning something into your career you want to do for a lifetime, and you want to make sure that the doors of opportunity are open for you, and sometimes it's that I've seen doors of opportunity not be open to me because I haven't got a degree, and some people will only see people with degrees. It's just the first part of the HR process. Boom. I'm not looking at those CVs. I don't need to. I have enough to look at right in front of me.
Exactly. It's like an initial weeding out process sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Depending on the type of design that you want to do and the level of the firm that you want to work for and so forth. Exactly. Now, I think it's a great point, and it really is the point is in the mix and what you said, the perseverance. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to do to put next to your talent. You can't ignore, we say all the time that it's 20% design and 80% business. So you can't ignore that. You can't just show up at the door and I'm here, I am, I know how to put a room together. And that's the other thing too, is sometimes you don't know what you don't know. You know how to pick beautiful things. You have a great eye, but do you actually have the ability for scale and proportion? Maybe you do. Maybe you're born with it. Maybe you're not. The idea is don't be so naive in your thinking to not explore it, right?
Absolutely. And I think the other thing is it's the combination of talent plus skill set is an unstoppable force.
Exactly.
It is in business the sexiest thing alive, and why chop off one of those?
Right. Exactly. Okay. So now thank you for all of that, because I just, that's the whole premise of the podcast. It's why it was born. It's its mission every day is to really drive the point home that you've got to pay attention to that 80%. And if you do, and you have that 20% to, like you said, that's the magic. So,
yeah.
But now, so you had a moment, and I have heard you on other podcasts. I've listened to your TED Talk. You had a moment where, as an interior designer, you looked around at your friends who were doctors and lawyers and other careers and thought, what the heck? I'm only an interior designer. Like, what is my legacy on this? And then a journey went on from there. Tell us about that, Phoebe.
Okay. Well, it was gosh, my goodness me. It was a fair few years ago, probably about 8-9 years ago. And so therefore I'd already been in the industry about 8-9 years. And I went into it with, a great deal of passion and, I want to make pretty beautiful spaces. And when I was first in it, you do get excited about what the next trend around the corner is and how you can put, a room together, because it's all fresh, it's all new, it's you haven't done it before. And then I was beginning to sit around the mummy circles with my toddlers, and I had, been set up my business about 2-3 years earlier. So I was sort of out on my own for the first time. And I was listening to these other people kind of come back from their days, and a friend who was she's an anaesthetist, but she used to volunteer. So she had 2 children, would work as an anaesthetist at all sorts of god earthly hours through the day and night. And then on the side would volunteer for the helicopters that go in for emergencies. So if there's a freeway accident, her helicopter would land. She would pull people out of the most difficult situations of their life, save their lives. Predominantly that was the way it went. Sometimes not so much. And she would come home and she would sit around. We'd all be having our tea and biscuits, throwing a few jigsaw puzzles at the children. And she'd be going, well, I've done this. And then my other friend would go, well, I'm a lawyer and I've defended this person, or I've, defended this person who was trying to, prosecute this person for some hideous crime committed against them. And then they go, what have you done? I go, I've selected some fabric. I've,
found the perfect knob for that cabinet.
Like, oh God, man. And so it's the Simon Sinek, what's your why? And my why was kind of, wasn't enough to go, I do pretty things, and it gives the people I work for pleasure and it gives me pleasure. And I was thinking, yeah, that was enough, but what is it? I've got this skill set, but it's not revolutionizing the world. It's not changing. It's changing space, but and also I think the hard thing about interior design is, people build a building and it will stand for 3-4 times their lifetime. You design a room, and by the time you shuffle off this mortal coil, that room will have been skipped 3, 4, 5 times over for the next trend, the next feeling. And so, yeah, it was a little bit of a kind of crossroads in some ways of kind of going, well, what's the reason? What's the reason for this, apart from I always told myself I loved it? And I ended up going to, over here we have an organization called the BIID, which is the British Institute of Interior Design, and they do a big conference. And it was the first time I kind of went, I'm going to sign up, I'm going to go. And I rocked up all on my own, didn't know anybody in the room, and sat down and they wheeled out, and this is probably goes back to the, don't cut off your avenues earlier than you need to. And they rolled out people who were so inspiring, and they talked about the difference that color can make in a space to the mental well-being of people. They talked about how you can design a space for, not only productivity, but for employee happiness. And you're going, hold the phone. You're saying that what I do can make an enormous difference to the mental well-being of the people occupying those spaces. And I came home and it was just like someone had flicked on a switch of purpose that I went, I love this idea. And what I found, though, there was still a crossroad that I kind of went, I love this. And I started reading more about it. And it's that thing when you begin to get into something, it pops up more at you.
Yes, you keep seeing it, right?
Yeah, and so you'd read an article and you'd see they'd mention some kind of word. So at the moment, I know the one which is really on the lips of most people is biophilic design. Mm-hmm. I'll quickly define that just for people who don't know. So biophilia, despite its rather dodgy sounding name, is actually a study which is human beings' relationship to nature. So if you go take a walk in the woods, that it calms you, that your cortisol drops, that it sets off a set of triggers in your body that make you happy. So you can now hear the word forest bathing, that people go out to the forest and, drink in its beauty and find that it's good for their mental health. So biophilic design is when you take those same principles and put them within your interiors in, lots of different ways. And so you begin to hear these things, and there's loads of them, and I'm reading more about it and finding I'm reading neuroscience and research documents like a complete and utter weird nerd. But that stage, what was happening was this was my interest, but I wouldn't have said, but I was too scared to step up and make it my business. And this is the thing which I would say very much about niching. It can be very scary. It can also, especially if you're slightly reading things that are a bit ahead of where you are now. At that time, you don't know it's ahead. You just think it's a weird interest you have. It's only when you get to things being in vogue that you realize you were ahead, not that you were just doing your own thing. And so that it was kind of like I was interested in it. I was fascinated by it. And I would find that I would talk to friends about it. But still, I'd be asked to write an article about what the 3 top trends for the season are going to be. And I'd go in and pitch for work. And I kind of would still go, yeah, of course we can do what, we can just make it pretty. And then it was the TED Talk opportunity came up. So we have I guess you'd use the word chapter or franchise here in Tunbridge Wells. And I'd gone to one, and I'd always wanted to do a TED Talk. As you used to say, it's on your bucket list. And it's really strange when you do watch it. And some people watch it go, oh my God, that's amazing. I could never do that. And some of us watch it and go, I want a piece of that pie.
I need to do that. And then there's other that I've told, like my husband, he's like, why? Like, what's the difference? I'm like, oh my gosh.
And it's just like, there's this feeling. And so I went to one of them and I watched the speakers, and I was absolutely loved the day. I came home just so much, enthralled and enriched by everything I'd learned and buzzing from it. And I went, and I still in my head was going, you could do that. You could speak as well as any of those people up there. And, maybe this would be your moment. Instead of boring your friends down the pub with, your whole other aspects of interior design thing, maybe you could do that. And then you get it out your system. 2 things, you can talk about it. You can tell people there's a bigger side to interior design, and you can get the whole, getting up on stage and doing the TED Talk thing out of the way. And so I put myself forward. And I kind of got the interview. I kind of wrote, this is what I want to write about. And I kind of went and spoke further about it. And they went, you're in. And now you're going, oh my God, I've got to put my money where my mouth is. And so,
be careful what you wish for.
5 minutes ago it was a concept. Now, Jesus, I've got to research, write, deliver, learn off by heart every single word, and the drive to do it was extraordinary, and it opened my eyes to, one, that people were interested, and secondly, it happened to coincide that I was in the middle of addressing my company brand message, and I found that I wasn't quite getting traction where I wanted to go with my business. I found that I was doing work I wasn't in love with. I was doing work, but I kind of kept thinking, this isn't really what I want to be doing. This isn't what I want to do. And you suddenly realize it's your own company. If you can't shape your own company to fulfill your own dreams, where have I gone wrong? And
That's a great line.
the niche, it sort of all roads came together at the right time. And I ended up working with a branding agency. And I said, I happen to be doing this TED talk, and if you're interested, I'll send you my workings, but please don't send it out there. And she wrote back and went, holy God, this is your business, you idiot. And I'm like, oh, but will people buy it? Will people want it? And she went, oh yeah, yes, they will.
Well, there's always more out there. Like, when you have a passion for something like that, and of course, this is a passion that's different than other passions. This is a passion that supports us at a physiological level, right? We had Mike Peterson on the show a couple of months ago, and he was episode 569, and he did the whole thing on wellness and how he actually talked about the same thing, about the effect on the forest on our body and recreating in our homes, and how the medical field has been onto this for a whole lot longer than the interior design field. And that it's like he's got the same mission for you, it's to personally do it. And of course, by talking on podcasts and the TED Talk and other things, you're sharing the message that it isn't just picking fabric, that it is creating an actual physiological change in your person, in your cells, in your body, and to attach, if that gives you joy and that gives you that passion, to attach your niche to that is worthwhile, because there's a lot of people that won't know it. There's a lot of people that won't get it, but there's always people that will. And I do think it's just turning that way more, right? It's not like we're introducing this in the 1950s.
No, I think the other thing is let's look at the time we've just been through.
Yes.
And now see, so
you're in your house 24/7 for the last 6 months. If you can't understand how important it is to have a home that you feel, good
Absolutely.
in, just good and protected and cared for and uplifted and joyful. Like, what will it take you to realize that, right?
I know, and I think that's the other thing is that some of what that I might talk about, the nerdy neuroscience side of it, the basic interior design skills are still very much part of the skill set. We call it holistic interior design, but we're looking at it in 3 levels. We want to make sure that a space, physically functions really well for you. Most interior designers are looking to do that. That's called great layout. We might look at some of the neuroscience behind that, but Feng Shui is part of that same equation. And as you talk about it, Feng Shui has been actually talking a lot about what we're talking in neuroscience now for millennia.
Right.
And, it's the same equation when people are talking now about the science behind meditation. Where a lot of people go, meditation, that's a bit weird. And now they're going, when we attach electrodes to your brain, we can see what it's doing. But now we can go, neuroscience says this. We'll go, that feels very good. That feels right. But if we go, Feng Shui says this, they go, you're a weirdo.
Right. Woo-woo. Right.
I know.
Yes.
And so that both have been hand in hand for a very long time. And all of it is about looking at ourselves. I mean, I think I use this phrase, which is, I look at the job in 2 levels. I look at the client as an individual, their lifestyle choices, their habits, how we can, complement those so that working in your home, being in your home is in an instinctual, easy flow. If you're fighting with your kitchen when making dinner, it's a frustrating, grumpy experience. And if you're, so we look at that, we look at the people, but we're also looking at us as human beings. So our bodies are designed to react certain ways. Our circadian rhythm to our sleep is really important. So how, as a designer, do we design rooms that push that circadian, or support it, or push the buttons that make your body go through the process it needs to go through to kind of switch off and have a good night's sleep at the end of the day? And that's the crossover. So it's looking at how our spaces physically support us. Yes, aesthetics is still really part of the equation. If we're not in a beautiful space that tells our personal story, then it's not a place you want to be. And also, let's face it, people are hiring us because they want beautiful spaces. They're not, if they didn't want beautiful spaces, they wouldn't be hiring us.
Right, they just slap it together themselves.
Yeah, they just go, well, I've just, thrown in the old furniture from the old place and we're just going to roll with it. And then the third part of it is, how does a space feel to be in? Mm-hmm. And this is, very instinctual for everybody. And most of us won't know why we feel good in a space. We'll know what is annoying us about it. We'll know, we'll feel those things, but that's also where we're looking at a lot of the research underneath it, and then asking a lot of questions. And that's why we've slowed down our process as well for design. Is that we want to be able to work through it a little bit slower with a client, because we're having to pull out their story. We're having to go from strangers to kind of knowing them quite well to building spaces that instinctually work with them. And after lockdown here, I did sort of vaguely take pleasure in kind of phoning up some of my clients and going, well, how did it go for you? How did lockdown go for you? And which room's working for you? And did you sleep better now that we've worked on that room? And the answers were, we were okay. Yes. And yes, we are sleeping better. And we've had an all right time. And that, because it's really hard to prove you're right in this stuff, because it's very ethereal, that you're going, that's the first time I've ever going to be able to ask those questions and go back. And it's exciting. It's exciting to see a path that I was scared to go on to come to fruition. And now we've got it where people are talking about the trend, which is so ironic, isn't it? To say I didn't want to talk about trends, their wellness, their mental health, that the way we function in our space will actually push its way to the forefront of, most definitely in the UK. We've got a company over here called Trend Bible, who is a trend predictor going into the end of 2021, 2022. These are what we're going to be talking about. This is how we're going to be designing. This is the color psychology we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking in the mainstream about the effect of this. And, I was early to the party, but I had to make a decision to be brave enough to do it. And thank God, because now the party's going on, I'm ready for it.
Right. Well, I mean, you know what? Look, it's the couple of things that you've said in there, I think apply to every part of our business, in the sense that you said you were afraid, but you had to do it. So you were afraid to lean into this niche, but you were drawn to it. And there was, once you had that experience being at the lectures and you were learning about the psychology of color and all of the other things that go into wellness and holistic design, it's the idea is that when we're drawn to something, it doesn't mean that we're not going to be afraid in that path to getting to it. But if the passion is big enough and bold enough and compelling enough, then it's okay to push through and see on the other side, right? It's when we say, I think this feels right for me, but no one's doing it, or this feels so to my core what I should be sharing and telling my clients, but it sounds crazy pants. You have to just have that little gut check of, this just feels right. It feels important, and I'm just going to go with it. And then when you step into it, then all of a sudden, because you really are fully embracing what is at your core, then that's attractive. That draws the people to you that also want that, right? Yeah,
I think it's two things. One is that if you are when I go back to the thing of talking about, I was working in a company I didn't want to work for, and yet it was the company I created, crazy, that to get up every day and do the work you authentically want to do gets you through the grind some days.
Right.
You know, there are days where, you know, you just got to get up and you got to get on with it. And it's your why. It's your Simon Sinek why. What's my why today? Why I'm going to come in here and do my accounts? Because I get to make beautiful spaces that make people feel great.
Right.
I feel like I've found my purpose. But the other thing is that we need to stop. Again, choosing my words carefully. We need to stop being scared of unique when we talk about design, because unique is what's amazing. And the unique in business is also what's amazing. And they call it, and I've forgotten who wrote it, it's called Blue Ocean Strategy.
Oh,
have you
yes.
heard this one? Yeah, so that if we are trying to follow the pack of sharks to the dinner, that's the red ocean. If we're trying to make our companies a little carbon copy, and I speak from experience, I'm not pointing a finger here. That was me. I would I go, oh, I kind of want to you know, maybe that is working for that lady, and it's working for this person over here, and maybe I should be a bit more like that, and maybe I should say this, and maybe I should say the other. And then you're late to the shark feast. But if you embrace your own, if your niche is made up of your own authentic passion and drive, and it is a little bit, oh, no one else is doing it, then that is the blue ocean strategy.
Right.
And you've just got to have the bravery to swim out on your own. I'm really going for this metaphor now.
Right.
And that's the thing, which is that, you know, it's to do, you know, we can see it with style, that if you have a particular way of putting things together and you're going, I'm not seeing anyone else do that, don't be scared of it. That's what you do, and that's what you do you well. Right. And that was what happened with me. And I think it's dictated how my stuff works and what it kind of looks like, and the kind of clients I get are people I really love working with. And it was, as I said, it was brave. It felt strange, and it took me a while to really pony up and sort of, even though it was all over my website, to go, yep, I'm a holistic interior designer, because you could see the little twitch of, oh, that sounds a bit weird. Right. And what do you mean by that? And does that mean you're going to turn up with joss sticks? And I kind of go, well, actually, two things. I'm going to embrace the fact that I know what your instant reaction is going to be. I'm going to go, oh, I bet you think I'm Mrs. Trelawney from Harry Potter. But I'm not. And then I explained that the word holistic means that everything is connected. Mm-hmm. And that is the genuine dictionary definition, that it means that everything's connected. And I say it's that, you know, we shape our houses and our houses shape us. It's as simple as that. The way we design our homes really have an effect on us. And we do know that. Right. But we kind of refuse to acknowledge it for a quick Instagram pic. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what kind of makes it very exciting to be doing it now, is the kind of to follow the belief of what made me tick, but also know that who I was a bit of a unique voice. It was a little bit odd, but I couldn't get up without doing it. And it's actually opened far more doors for me than if I hadn't done it.
Right. And that is the magic in it. And that's why episodes like this are so important, because regardless of what your particular niche that you're drawn to, the idea is that there's always that fear that if I niche down, I'm not going to be found. I'm not going to be busy. What if I, have to close the door on projects? But every person that has described how they have leaned into their niche, like I said, regardless of what that niche is, has always followed it up with two huge things. They love what they do now, and they find more and more clients are attracted to them than ever before. And it's just borne out over and over. I can remember way back in the beginning, also the same niche with wellness design was Cheryl Janis. I mean, I want to say she was in the first 20 episodes, maybe the first 30. And she described, and that was 4.5 years ago. Nobody was really talking about wellness design then. And she just said that she had been a designer for many years. And because of her own personal experience with 2 or 3 times having had situations where she was in accidents and had to go to rehab, and her family members, different things, but she was like consistently finding herself in rehabs, doctors' offices, hospitals, and of course designing as a designer all the time on the side in her regular, every jack of all trades designer role. And at some of the physically and mentally most challenging times of her recovery, she would look around the space and just feel so much more depressed and unmotivated to get well. And that's when she just said, this is crazy. I got to do something about this. But she literally said, I was scared. I thought that I was never going to have a client again. And her business just busted up. And so, and I think that it is that combination of when you're so passionate about it. There's something that is very contagious when you are truly enjoying what you're doing, instead of like what you said is running a business that I don't even recognize this. What is this? Why am I doing this? Right?
Yeah, and I think it was always like, oh well, we'll just get this job ticked off, and it will lead to the job I want to do.
Right.
And it's like it's just like realizing you've started to drive to a destination and you've just gone on the wrong road.
Right. And, well, and it's funny because there's been a lot of times
you're never going to make it to Scotland this way.
Exactly. And there's a lot of times I've used the phrase, it's not a dress rehearsal. So like when you just said that, it's like, well, I'm going to take this job because then I'll get the job that I like. I'll take this one because then I'll get the one that I want. It's not a dress rehearsal. You get one go around. And every time you say yes to something that you don't want to do, or project that you don't want to take, or a client you don't want to work with, you automatically close the door for the one that would have been right. It's funny because just at Window Works yesterday, we're getting ready to hire 2 design assistants. By the way, if you're a rock star, let me know. Okay. But we're getting ready to hire 2 design assistants, and we just did a massive renovation at Window Works and made room for, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 desks. And I'm saying to myself, I need 2 new design assistants and I only have space for 1. And so for me, I know I'm moving around and I'm talking to my different employees. Well, what if we, put a desk here, and what if this, and if you worked here, would you feel comfortable? And the proximity, who do you need to be close to, and blah, blah, blah. And at one point somebody said, well, I mean, you don't even have the ad in yet. Like, do we need to worry about this? And I'm like, oh, no. The universe has to know I'm dead serious. See, if I don't make the space for the person, then I have this feeling that the universe is like, okay, let's have that ad in forever because you're not really ready. But when I create the space for the person, I'm like, there's the desk that this imaginary, most amazing, wonderful design assistant is going to work at. Then I believe the universe says, oh yeah, send it to her because she's ready. Right? Yeah. Like, it's like that kind of energy. Do you agree with that, Phoebe?
Yeah, I think there is a way that things open up to you. And I would always sort of say that I spent through a phase, I think it was just before, and it was a real kind of just before the transformation of kind of going, right, I'm really ready to go for this. I'm really ready I had to review what my business was, and I had to review why it wasn't ticking the boxes. And I didn't even think that the thing that was like my nerdy side obsession was the answer. That was just, who was interested in that, for goodness sakes? But I ended up calling it, the philosophical thing where they talk about your jar. Your life is like a jar, and the important things are your rocks, and then then your pebbles, and then your sand. But if you fill your jar with sand first, you can never get the rocks in. And so what I did was I spent the summer, as I called it, emptying out my jar. It was like, I need to I need to step away from stuff. I need to, all these things I'm doing because I feel I have to do them. I need to review, are they actually serving their purpose? What do I want to do? And then only when you kind of got your empty jar, so to speak, can you start going, hold on a minute, this holistic side is really important to me. The other thing, which is I'm almost sometimes feel that I'm slightly double niched, that I aim at family homes. And that is, that was the thing. And those were the crowd which I loved working with. I loved working on those types of buildings. I loved working, they were actually also quite profitable because they're kind of normally everyone's moved into their forever home and they want to invest in it. And so that, and it also worked for me. I understood what it is to be a family, that you can create a beautiful lounge, but it needs to be wipeable. And, you don't want to be a stressed parent. And so I had that. And then, so for a while when I was first trialing it, I would go, my niche is family homes. And my USP is holistic interior design. And so that was another phrase which we've lost a little bit, which is my unique selling point, is that I bring this other thing to the party. And what it means is, for me, it just made marketing so much easier. You knew who you were writing for. You didn't have to write something for all people. You could write it, you write articles about, living with your kids, and therefore also weave in how you holistically support yourselves as a family. And it just, all roads kind of did lead to Damascus. It all clicked in. And when and it did take somebody else, and I'm not going to say that I suddenly had the epiphany sitting at my own desk, is that I kind of gave all the information to someone else and they went, well, the answer is really obvious. And when they fed it back, when they held that mirror up, and this is also why it's often good to work with someone else to help you shape your business, working with business coaches, it stops me most definitely getting in a muddle where they kind of take all the information you're trying to compute and kind of go, well, here it is, look, you actually have the answer. You go, oh man, yeah, I do.
That happens a lot. I have to say, that's my experience as well, both being coached and coaching. That many times I'm in both sides of that. I've been on both sides of it, having this full-blown conversation, trying to figure it out, this and that. And all of a sudden, my coach will look at me and go, I think we just said it. Why don't you just repeat that sentence and try it on for size? And you're like, huh. And the same with the eyeballs and the aha moments when I'm having conversations the other way. It is valuable to get that outside look on your business because you can get so inward focus that what it is it's I use the example all the time. It's the directions to your own house. You're gonna forget a turn. You're gonna forget a turn because you're so close to it, you don't see it. And it's that same benefit with someone else talking you through things because they're not that close to it, and either they're gonna pry and prod and ask other questions because you're not really getting to the heart of what you're trying to express, or you've expressed it and you're running around a circle and you don't even see it. Right.
Yeah. You're on autopilot.
Right.
And so and I think that ability of someone to go, look, this is the way of doing it. This is, you already have the answer.
Right.
And it's also that outside voice of going, go on now, have the courage,
right.
Step into it. This is, we can see this can work. Just step into it, because then it takes away that terror. And I think the stepping into it was a huge thing for me. I had to sit with the documentation. I had to think about it a lot. And my brain went, if you step into this, you better blinking well know what the hell you're talking about on every single issue. So you're not only taking on, maybe yet again, it goes back to the first conversation, you're not just taking on going, you can't play this lip service, Phoebe Jane. Right. You need to
Right. You can't just say, this makes you feel good. You have to know what makes people feel good and at a physiological level, right? You have to actually do the work. Just what we started with, right? You have to do the work, whatever it is. But the reward is in doing the work. And whether it comes at the beginning of your career, at 8 years in your career, whatever it is that that moment where you put it all together, the inspiration, the idea, the passion, and then the education, the information, the knowledge, to put it together and to put it out in the world. And then the last is the courage to step in and do it. I think it's awesome. I'm so glad. I mean, you've got, designers like yourself that picked up on it 8-10 years ago. There's others that are coming into it every single day. But I think the big, huge message is, if this is a passion that you share, is to understand that it's not a woo-woo thing. It's an actual real thing. And if you take the time to read and educate yourself on it, you really can make a huge difference in your clients' lives. But if your passion is, working for bachelors, that are in high-rise apartments, it doesn't matter. It's if you really, really feel like you can serve that niche well and you're the one to do it, just put your flag in. Just put your freak flag out and do it, right?
Absolutely. I think that is the thing. And it's, embrace your niche, which, your authentic niche. I think that's the thing is you can't
make it up. Yeah. You
can't make it up. You can't pick it because it sounds good marketing wise, because when you sit to pitch that idea to someone else, there's holes in it. Your heart's not in it.
Right.
And I think that was just the joy for me of turning up and going, I can put my heart on my sleeve and I can say, this is what I am. This is what I represent. And that makes me a good designer, not a weird designer.
Right.
And to know, and it goes back to the doctor story, as my friends were making a difference to other people's lives. And maybe that was the whole thing, is I needed to find that my skill could make a difference to someone else's life. Mm-hmm. And that brings me joy. And it made me proud of the business that I've built with that. Mm. And that is the other side of niching your business when it's authentic to you, is it's rewarding to you, not just your clients.
Right. So true. So true. Oh, my goodness, Phoebe, I'm so glad that we did this today. Thank you so much. It's just such a strong, powerful message on both fronts. The physiological, the neurological side, the continuing to understand this is a real thing, but also, and more importantly for me, that when someone can tap into something that really, as you just said, is of huge service to your client, but boomerangs and serves you as well. That's the huge win-win of it all, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, thank you, Phoebe, so much for being on the show today and sharing your expertise with us. And of course, we will put the links in the show notes to your TEDx talk and your website and all of that other good stuff. But I do appreciate your coming. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'm so really impressed by Phoebe's passion and the commitment she has to serving her clients in a way that goes beyond what they see, right? And taps into how they feel and how they live and their mental well-being. It's so important to find this passion, the passion that drives you, because this is what sets you apart from the others, right? So, and I'm not saying it sets you apart because one of you has passion and the other doesn't. It's what your passion is that sets you apart. So you can be in a room with designers, 10 designers, and you're all passionate, but there's just this little nuance to each of you that you bring to it that's just that little slice of passion that's going to resonate with your end consumer, right? And hearing Phoebe's experience, especially how she started this path to holistic design at a BIID event, reminds me of my friend and listener, Chloe Bullock. She is a strong advocate for holistic design and vegan design and a firm believer that design can contribute to the world in a deep and meaningful way. All right, so I want to just commend Chloe. And I also want to say that this trend is starting to pick up. It's people like Chloe, Phoebe, Cheryl Janis, Mike Peterson, and of course my friend Deborah Damari, the founder of vegandesign.org. They all know and have known for some time that design is a gateway to well-being, that there is a connection between the space we are in and how we feel and the way we live and our health and our well-being, right? Phoebe mentioned the blue ocean strategy, that instead of going where all the sharks are to the red ocean, where everyone is doing the same thing, being the carbon copy of already what's out there, you can go to uncharted territory, to a blue ocean, and start something else. I know that that could be scary, all right? And so I have to say, don't be afraid. We've had designer after designer, whether the niche is wellness or the niche was, bachelors, right? Misty Maxey is working specifically with bachelors. I mean, every single one that has come on the show and shared how they finally just took the plunge into their niche, how it has expanded and grown their business. Okay. So I want to say too, that if you are doing projects that you're not passionate about, you're closing yourself off from something that could be fulfilling to you. All right. So I urge you to start thinking about what it is that gets you out of bed in the morning. How can you incorporate that into your interior design business? What can you offer that's special, that resonates with you on a deeper level, and that serves your clients in the highest way possible? All right. If you need to, go out and research it. Know it in and out. Phoebe pointed out that you can't niche because it sounds marketable. You have to truly feel it, and you have to know it. And it comes, and it will, when that happens, it will come through in everything that you do. And that's the authenticity that your clients will relate to. All right. And one of our show sponsors also has a commitment to both research and to serving clients, and that's Monogram Appliances. They carefully research before they create designs. They ensure everything they create contributes to the look and the feel that represents them and their brand. Their passion shows in the details and the craftsmanship in every appliance that they design. If you haven't already, you can sign up for the Monogram Trade Partner Program, and you're eligible for special events when you do that. Get started today at monogram.com/Luann. That's monogram.com/Luann. All right. I also want to make sure that you go and you check out Phoebe's TEDx talk. All right. So if you just go onto YouTube, well, we'll put the link in the show notes as well. But if you go onto YouTube and you put her name in, it'll come right up. I've watched it. She does an awesome job. And you, being a design colleague of hers, I'm sure are going to appreciate it. All right. I also want to remind you that next week we start Process Leads to Profits again. Okay. If you are feeling like, that one designer told me, I ask every single designer, every window treatment person that comes, and photographers that come and take our courses through Lou University. In the first class, I always ask, why did you take this course? Why did you sign up for this course? And it just struck me between the eyeballs. The first time we ran the course for Process Leads to Profits, one of the designers said, Luann, I feel like I'm building the car while I'm riding down the road at 65 miles an hour. And, she had been in business many years, and she just said, it just is overwhelming, and I just need to put the brakes on and figure this out. And so if you relate to that, if you feel like you know that you have a good business on your hand, or you intend to have a good business on your hand, this is for a brand new designer or a seasoned designer. It doesn't matter, okay? If you have not stopped and put the process into your business yet, and you feel like every single week you're on this hamster wheel, then Process Leads to Profits is for you. Sarah Brennan has this particular superpower of helping you consider and take apart the way you onboard a client, the way you want to take a client through that onboarding process, the way you want to do the expediting phase, the way you want to execute a design presentation. She helps you figure out what it is that you want to do, and then she helps you figure out how to put it to a process. I've said to you, we've had more than 70 interior designers go through this course already, and every single one has been a high five review. And I would tell you, even as a window treatment professional, I would tell you, you will get benefit from this, or even a photographer, because Sarah's not teaching you how to do it the way she does it. She's teaching you how to take what you do and put it to a process. So some of the language might be designer centric, there's no question, but I know you can sit in that course and relate it to how do you onboard a window treatment client as a photographer? How do you onboard a new design client, right? What are the steps that you do? It's all the same. This is the heart of our businesses. It's a core of our businesses, is the exact way that we run it, and we do them over and over again, because that's when you are in a position of confidence and not barreling down the road at 65 miles an hour, feeling like you're building the car at the same time. Okay. And when you reach that point where you know what you come to the table with, that's when you raise your rates. And that's when you start to multiply your value. And that's when you start to get all the benefits of the reason you became an entrepreneur in the first place. Right? So join us, processleadstoprofits.com. All right. Thank you again to Phoebe for sharing this and fantastic, unique perspective on design with us, and for reminding all of us that our passions are worth pursuing. Thanks so much for listening. Decide to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at luannigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.